Welcome to the Indie Author Method, where we share insights for authors for you on your writing journey. On the weekends, when you have more time and space in your day, we sit down with another author to discuss their processes and what they can share with you. This episode is brought to you by Monk Manual. Monk Manual, at its core, is a 90-day productivity system, but it's much more than that. You see, Monk Manual as a company is on a mission to fix modern productivity and help people live fuller lives. Inspired by the wisdom of monks and rooted in psychology, they designed practical tools for peaceful being and purposeful doing. They were so gracious to partner with the Indie Author Method, and you can check out their website, their products, including the 90-day planner that I personally use at their website, monkmanual.com. Be sure to use promo code Andrew J. Brandt at checkout for 15% off your order. That's all one word, promo code Andrew J. Brandt at monkmanual.com. Now on to the interview. Today, I am so excited to talk with Nicola Harrison, the author of Hotel Laguna, one of my favorite books to come out this summer. Nicola, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
I wouldn't be surprised if Hotel Laguna isn't on my reading list email when I send out my selections for best books of 2023.
Oh,
I
thank you.
devoured it. It's period piece. It's almost, I would say, coming of age. I mean, even though that Hazel's like an adult, I think we do like have this coming of age thing in our 20s and into our 30s. It's coming of age for America as a country, like coming out of World War II. It's beautifully written. So I had to pull some strings. We have some mutual friends, but I was like, I need to have this woman on the show.
Well, I'm glad you did. Thanks for having me. It's great.
It's period piece. It's World War II. So I think the answer to this is obvious, but like, what inspired you to write Hotel Laguna, and how'd you come up with the idea?
So, well, it's a story of Hazel Francis, who moves from Wichita, Kansas to Los Angeles to work in the airplane factory, Douglas Aircraft, to help build aircrafts during the war as one of the Rosie the Riveters. And she works this job. She loves it. She's thriving in the position. And then the men come home from war and take their jobs back. And the ladies are told, thanks so much for your help. Now go back to being a housewife.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to do that. And so she ends up going down to Laguna Beach and kind of desperately taking a job for a cranky old artist who turns out to be this very famous artist who's haunted by a scandal from his past. And so I started writing this, or started thinking about writing it in the midst of COVID, the height of COVID. So it was like early 2020. And I was on the East Coast and it was locked down and I couldn't travel to do any research or anything, but I kept thinking about where I wanted to at least live in my imagination for the next year and a half or 2 years or however long it took me to write the book. And I kept coming back to the idea of Laguna Beach because it's a place that I love. I've spent time there. It's an artist community and my parents are artists and they've exhibited in the art galleries in Laguna Beach. So that kind of like the place made sense to me where I wanted to set a book. But then I started, when I settled on the time period of the 40s, I started reading about these women who worked as Rosie the Riveters, is what they're known as now. And I was just fascinated by them and that they took on these jobs that were men's jobs, working like hydraulic presses and building aircraft. And they were upset when they had to give them up. And then I found out that my husband's grandmother, Grandma Ruth, was a Rosie the Riveter. Okay. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, well, she was in the family. I never got to meet her, but the family knows a lot of stories about her. So that's where the story got started and took off from there.
I mean, it's historical fiction. Do you read a lot of historical fiction?
I do. Yeah, I love historical fiction. But I like to write historical fiction that's also very relatable to now. So even though it's things that have gone on in the past, like I like the characters. I mean, I think that we all have like these universal truths, like desire and love and wanting to accomplish something and wanting to belong. And so I think that even though it's historical, it can also be very relatable to today.
Who are some of the authors that have either been like influences on you, like literary influences, or have they like impacted your writing style?
I mean, I love Beatrice Williams. I love Fiona Davis. I mean, there are so many. I just, I love all that historical fiction. I also read contemporary fiction.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your actual writing process then? Like you said, you wrote this kind of during COVID, I think when a lot of us had a little bit of extra downtime.
Yeah, well, kind of. I had kids at home, so I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to write again. But I shaved off time.
Could you tell us about your process or like any particular habits you might follow?
Yeah, so I mean, basically I have two kids, as I just said. So I write when they're at school, and that kind of gives me a nice framework of like time. Because I think if you have unlimited time to write, you can kind of sit there and be like, I've got to wait for the muse, or, waiting for that inspiration. And it's almost like you can have too much time in a way. So it's nice to know, okay, well, as soon as they're out the door and off to school, that's when my writing starts. And then I basically have until 3:00. And it just makes you be like, okay, get down to it, get your word count in. I don't really write from an outline. So I'm kind of like an in-between, a pantser and a plotter. And for those who are non-writerly people, that's like a pantser is fly by the seat of your pants, or a plotter who's someone who maps it all out. I'm kind of in between. I like to know where I'm going. I generally feel like I know sort of what the beginning, middle, and end will be, but I like to leave some room for creativity, for things to happen that maybe I wasn't expecting to happen. So I write myself sort of like a one-page letter almost to myself, telling myself like, this is what it's going to be about. These are the main characters, and this is probably what's going to happen at the end. And then I put that away, and then I just start writing.
It's like I heard someone else liken it to like building a train track as you're driving the train, right? So you build some track and you drive on it, and it could go this way or it could go this way, but you're building that track as you're going.
It's a little nerve-wracking not knowing exactly where the track's going, but I also like that creativity, that flexibility.
Yeah. See, I find my creativity in the planning process, and then by the time I sit down to write chapter 1, I've got the entire book outlined, and
like chapter by chapter, scene by scene.
Oh yeah. So I know like which beats are going to hit, and like if if the character is grieving the loss, when does that come back? They have to face that head on, in Act 3, that kind of stuff. I like having all of that ready to go.
Yeah, I kind of wish I was that way, but I'm just not wired that way.
Again, you wrote Hotel Laguna during COVID. So I would say, what are some of the challenges you faced? And part of the challenges were, 2 kids running around while you're trying to write. But what were some of the challenges you faced when writing the book, and how did you? Some of the more writerly challenges too, and how did you overcome them?
One of the hardest things, because it was COVID, was not having access to go into the libraries. As a historical fiction writer, you kind of want to be able to go in and dig through and really read. I mean, there's only so much you can do online. And so that was one of the challenges with getting started with writing this book. But once things started to open up and I was able to go into specifically the Laguna Beach Library, I had been emailing back and forth with this librarian, and she'd been sending me articles. But when I went in there in person, she came out with this box, and she was like, there might be some things in here that would be helpful to you. And one of the things was a program from 1946 from the Pageant of the Masters, which is a big art show that plays a part in this book in Laguna Beach.
Yeah.
And so the original program was there, and it had the listing of all the art that they recreated that year.
Yeah.
All of the people who worked in the show, all the names, which historical names. And also it had advertisements of local businesses and like hotels, and it sort of gave like menus and things. So I kind of knew what they were eating. So all that sort of stuff was like a gold mine to me.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so that came in really helpful, but it was a bit of a challenge in the beginning not to have that.
Yeah. Did you find yourself like, how do you say, like not overdo it, I guess? I mean, with too many historical details. I've never written historical fiction, so I
that's the thing with it. It's what I've learned to do is I like to do a lot of research at the very beginning before I even write a single word. I just devour it all, read, and I take notes in a notebook. And then at that, I get to the point where I'm like itching to start writing. And then I just put those textbooks and notebooks away. And then I just start writing.
like I said earlier, I think one of the things about Hotel Laguna that I found was almost a coming of age story for Hazel, for the country coming out of World War II, for these Rosie the Riveters who were like coming into their own lives now that they've had this taste of like almost freedom, in
Yeah.
the workplace and becoming something more. What is the message or takeaway that you hope readers? What do you think readers should or would you like for them to get from the book?
Well, I think with any book, I really the main goal is that the reader is transported to another time and place and they're swept away with the story. But there is kind of a hope that people will also learn something along the way. And so I guess, but also you never want to get hit over the head with it, like you never want to feel like you're reading a textbook. So I think just the message is just sort of celebrating these women who worked on the home front during World War II, and sort of learning about them and sort of preserving their legacy because they did such an amazing thing and help win the war. And I have this thing on my bulletin board that I'm going to read. It says, it was a quote that I read somewhere along the way, so I've stuck it up. It says, one of the Rosies said, "You came out to California, you put on your pants, you took your lunch pail to a man's job. This was the beginning of women feeling that they could be something more." And I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I think we often overlook in the shellacking of history that the men went off to fight. So who kept the country running? Who kept the factories going? Who supplied the arms and the weapons and even the things that just depended on normal everyday life?
Absolutely.
It was the women who stayed here and played baseball even. So.
Yes, a league of their own.
That's right. Nicola, where can our viewers and listeners find you? And where can they find Hotel Laguna?
Yes, so Hotel Laguna is available anywhere books are sold, and it's also available as an audiobook, so Audible or Libby or any of those you might listen to. And as far as social media, I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Nicola Harrison Author, and I'm on Twitter as Nicola H Author. But you can also find me on my website, which is just nicolaharrison.com.
Fantastic. One more question before I let you go. And this has probably already happened to you because this book is fantastic, but somebody's going to come up to you and they're going to say, "I love this book and I have story ideas. What is the one piece of advice you would give me as an aspiring author?" So you, Nicola Harrison, what's that one piece of advice that you would give to an aspiring author?
I would say find your writing tribe, which just means basically find a group of like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
I am in a writing group where we share 7 pages with each other each week, and it's usually what we're working on that week. And we have on this group on Zoom, and I just love it because it holds me accountable. Every week I know I'm going to be sharing at least 7 pages of my new work with people that I trust, and we just give each other our gut reaction about if they think it's working, if it's not working. And for one thing, it holds me accountable. The other thing, it doesn't let me go totally off down a rabbit hole in the wrong direction. And it just makes me feel connected because writing can be a very solitary thing to do, just sitting in front of your laptop working away. So it's nice to connect with other writers on a regular basis.
Even Stephen King, he says, like, you write that first draft with the door closed, right? You don't open it up for input or suggestions. You just write the entire thing, and then the second draft you take suggestions. But more and more, you, Abby Jimenez, have sung the praises of having a writer group, a critique group.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful. And then I have another group that are a group of friends of published authors. And that's really helpful too, just because we both basically keep in touch on a text chain, but we call ourselves the Thursday Authors. You can find us on Instagram as the Thursday Authors. But we that's nice to connect also about the publishing world. We can ask each other questions about, oh my gosh, my cover, I have the cover for my next book, but I don't like it. What should I do? And then we were able to like chime in and things like that. So that's helpful too when you get to that point.
Yeah. Nicola, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate talking with you. Again, Hotel Laguna, I'm going to show it one more time. Available wherever books are sold. One of my favorite books of the year for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Okay.